Welcome everybody for this interview for the Supply Chain Security and Risk Management Virtual Summit. Today I have with me Mr. Declan O'Donovan, who is the Global Security Director for Cummins, the Global Security Logistic Director for Cummins, and the Global Security Director for EMEA and Asia Pacific, or all of Asia, I believe. Right, Declan? All of Asia?
Yeah, that's correct, George.
Okay, and thank you very much for sharing your time and expertise with us, Declan, on this call today. If you want more information on Declan, his bio, I'm not going to do a long introduction. You can go below this video and read about Declan's experience. And what I want to do is really get right into talking with Declan about supply chain security, because he has a wealth of experience, and he lives in EMEA. So he lives in Ireland, but having responsibility in EMEA gives us a different perspective of some of the things that are happening globally that Declan has to deal with. Declan, could you do me a favor, please? And even though we're not going to do a long introduction, just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your kind of what you've done in the past and what you're doing now.
Yeah, sure, George. So I'm currently with Cummins, as George has outlined, and I have been with Cummins for the last 5 years. Prior to that, I spent 12 years with the Dell Computers. Again, similar role, Global Security Director for Europe, Middle East, Africa, and also all of Asia, and also headed up part of the Logistics Security and Compliance Program for Dell for 12 years. Prior to that, I worked with a pharmaceutical company for 3 years, having Europe, Middle East, and Africa capability. And then spent 7 years in the retail industry. So that's just really just a very quick, brief overview in terms of my workload. As George has outlined, I'm a home-based employee, which a lot of companies tend to are moving towards right now. And I've been home-based for nearly 8 years. So normally, George, it's the dog and I and the kettle for most of the day, right? So
Right.
just a brief overview of me and my work area.
Well, you say that you're home based, but you travel a lot, so it really doesn't do you a whole lot of good to have an office somewhere, anyways.
Absolutely not. So I'm on the road probably about 70 to 80% of the time. If you talk to my wife, it's probably 99.999% of the time. But we won't get into that argument and topic right now. But the nature of the world and the changing of our industry, the only way that you can address issues or counteract issues or mitigate issues is to be there with your customer. And that is 80% of my time. So yeah, on the road quite a bit.
And actually, that's I first met Declan in Penang, Malaysia. We were in Malaysia when he was with Dell Computers. And Declan, could you please give everybody kind of an example, or if you could talk about some of the differences when you're talking about securing supply chains for electronics compared to the product that Cummins has and even in pharmaceutical? What were the major differences? Or are there none? Everything's transferable.
There's a lot that is transferable, George, but there's certain subtle differences. So when you think of Dell Computers and you think of the product, it's small, it's easily accessed, it's a product that people want, as opposed to Cummins when you look at a big diesel engine or a genset. And as I always make the analogy to people, you're not going to put a Cummins engine under your coat and walk out the front door, right? So again, there are kind of subtle differences in terms of how we approach our logistics security program at Cummins, and it's based on the risk to our product, but also the risk to our customers in terms of the quality service we want to portray and get out there to the customer. So again, yeah, when you're protecting a computer, it's certainly different than what you need to do and put in place when you're protecting an engine or a genset. So, but the programs that we operate to, CTPAT, and now up and coming in Europe already, which is the AEO, Authorized Economic Operator, it really doesn't define or distinguish or differ between the type of product. So there are certain comparable methods or actions that we do have to take, and we work very closely with the 3PLs and 4PLs to do that. And logistics security is very new to Cummins as such in the way that we know it. So it's been a good 3 to 4 years in terms of bringing that program on board, George. So hopefully that has answered your question.
It does. Now, you may not be able to walk out of a store with the Cummins engine under your coat, but you have surely a lot of suppliers who are bringing products into your manufacturing facilities. Are you either auditing them or forcing them in a way to have security programs to ensure that you don't have shutdowns in your manufacturing facilities?
Absolutely, we're addressing that in a two-pronged approach, George. So when we engage with our purchasing department that generally manages the relationship with the suppliers, we've developed a self-assessment. It's probably no different to a lot of the self-assessments that some of your viewers are going to have. Mm-hmm. And we ask them to practically fill that out. So at least we get a better sense overall as to their security posture, whether it is technology, whether it is location, whether it is risk. And again, it's risk to them, but it's also risk to us Cummins in terms of, the product getting to our business so it doesn't stop our lines. So we rank and rate them once we get all of those assessments back. And then we decide and define as to whether or not we need to get boots on the ground in terms to do a full and frank assessment. To be quite frank, most of our suppliers are up to a level that we require them to be, and it makes it quite simple for us to assess and determine next steps. But yes, to your answer, our logistics program goes outside of the four walls of Cummins, the four walls of our 3PLs and 4PLs, and we're drilling down into, our vendors, irrespective of whether they build widgets or whether they build a turbo for our engine. So, we address it in the same capacity.
Sure. And along your supply chain, it's not just looking at their facilities. You talk about doing the assessments, but are you doing lane assessments also of the supply chain?
Yes, we are. So we're currently in the last 12 to 14 months. As I said initially, this is a relatively new program in the way that we're doing it now. Logistics security did exist at Cummins, but we're bringing it into what the 21st century is offering us. So we're now in the process of mapping the lanes, whether it was from our suppliers to our facilities, or whether it's from our 3PLs and 4PLs to our facilities and vice versa. We're in the process of mapping out all of those lanes and have been doing that project for the last 12 months. As you can imagine, Cummins is in 190 countries across the globe. Wow. We have over 5,000 offices, and whether that's manufacturing, joint ventures, or whether it's just a Cummins, corporate office. So it's a significant, broad range of continents that we're addressing. But yes, we're addressing that right now.
So when you look at the risk that you have globally, we're going to cover in depth in the Security Summit and Risk Management Summit cargo thefts. But are cargo thefts really, since you can't just, it's really hard to steal an engine, what are some of the biggest risks that you encounter on a daily basis?
I suppose in terms of our product, the risks that we have is where are they located in transit? And it's the same as everything else. It's the same as if you're dealing with a computer or you're dealing with other high-end products, right? Whether it's perfume, whether it's clothes, etc. Are we creating the right quality environment in line with what industry standards would be? So for us is to understand, although we don't have the same applications, all of our trailers that we transport our product are soft-sided as opposed to hard-sided that most high-value product would have. Sure. So, we look at to see, are we an easy target in terms of that soft-sided, because we wouldn't apply some security infrastructure to soft-sided trailers. It would be, I suppose, it wouldn't be efficient, it wouldn't be cost-effective, and the risk isn't there. But we want to ensure quality from end to end. So are we going through the right 3PL warehouse, 4PL warehouse, again, on the road? Are we adhering to the same, whether it's the TAPA, FSR standards? Are our 3PLs and 4PLs treating our product the same as they would a high-value product? Because quality at Cummins and quality to the customer is of paramount. So it's for us to ensure that quality end-to-end is visible and it's also auditable. So for us, the risk really, George, right now is to ensure that we have the correct infrastructure from a 3PL and 4PL perspective, whether that's warehousing or on the road, and that we're adhering to the same standards. And we've just recently with legal, with indirect purchasing, and with the support of our 3PLs and 4PLs, readdressed and reassessed our MSA and their agreements. And again, we were able to bolster that MSA without creating a brick wall for the 3PLs and 4PLs that take our product. So for us is to ensure quality and to ensure all the necessary caveats are done in terms of that.
And when you say you're bolstering your agreements, is that putting security measures right into the terms of the agreements?
Yes, absolutely. So rather than looking, and I'm not saying we had a generic agreement, what we have had at the time was acceptable and suitable for our customers. We're looking to move Cummins forward in terms of quality. So you would hear our CEO say that Cummins is a technology company that builds engines. Sure. And we want to ensure that the quality of service and the quality in all parts of Cummins, are reviewed and implemented. And part of that was the MSA, again, was to bolster our legal agreements, but to do it in conjunction with our 3PLs and 4PLs. We didn't put in anything that was extraordinary. We didn't put in anything that would be redundant. We didn't put in anything that would be too cost effective. Because at the end of the day, we want to ensure quality. We don't want to increase price. And we did that best and efficiently through our MSA.
Absolutely. And how fast is Cummins able to turn around? Let's say, for example, you have a natural disaster like the volcano in Iceland, and it impacts much of your supply chain lane going maybe to North America. Do you have continuity plans or redundancies in place now where you can turn around much faster and still maintain customer service?
Sure, and I think over time, George, over the last number of years, whether it was the tsunami in Japan back in 2011, even though I wasn't at Cummins at that stage, we've helped and developed our business continuity plans, not alone just internally, because a lot of our manufacturing is done internally, but also with JVs across the region. So on a twice yearly, we conduct BCP tests, we update our BCP, but we're also currently stress testing a lot of our facilities and a lot of our suppliers through an external company that we've began to utilize in the last 2 years. So again, they take us out of our comfort zone, look at various different scenarios. So whether it's a diversion, whether it's a tsunami, whether it's a catastrophe, and get us to think outside of the box. So we've been working with this company in conjunction with our insurance companies to bolster our approach in terms of a natural catastrophe or incident. So yes, it has kept us in line in terms of a 24-hour turnaround. I've been part of a lot of these stress tests throughout the last 2 years, and it's just amazing for a company that builds diesel engines and gen sets that we can shift manufacturing from one continent to the next seamlessly without interrupting our business continuity or our business relationship with our customers.
Absolutely. And you're using some of the largest global 3PLs, 4PLs, I'm sure, for your supply chain. What have they brought to you as far as their ability to help you when either it's a natural disaster or something is impacting a supply chain and kind of on a regional basis? What are they bringing to you to help you ensure that you can continue with customer service based on their experience? Because they have a wealth of it also.
Absolutely. So I suppose it's best to start with the quarterly QBRs that we have. So we've changed the QBRs over time over the last number of years to include certain things as we're just discussing, George, is the BCP. And it's amazing how these companies are solid in terms of their BCPs. So we've actually attended some of the simulations that they've done. We've given them opportunities to come back and demonstrate to us what actions they would take in terms of a catastrophe, in terms of ensuring to us. Again, we're not always able to 100% ensure, but certainly on paper and through exercises, they've been able to demonstrate to us that they have the capability and ability, I suppose, to think outside of the box and address our lanes irrespective of what disruptions we've had or they would have had. And we've been able to work with them in order to ensure that we have a comfortable factor that our lanes are not going to be interrupted significantly based on a catastrophe in the region. Their senior leadership, their security leadership, their HSE leadership, their BCP leadership. They're all involved in contributing to our QBRs, which has helped us develop a very comfortable factor with the 3PLs and 4PLs. And as you know, George, these 3PLs and 4PLs have been around over 100 years as well. Yeah. Cummins is over a 100-year company. So we've been able to demonstrate through time, through the various different situations that the world has given us, how we can make ourselves better. And again, we evaluate after every situation. So if there's a natural catastrophe, again, say, for example, in Japan, so we have a particular product that is built in Japan. So we've looked at, so let's call it succession planning. What is the alternative? And it's made us think a little bit more. And it's also made our vendors think a little bit more in terms of, the stock that they hold, the amount of stock that they hold, and where they actually hold it, so that if one area and situation is compromised, the other is not. So we've worked with them very closely to do that.
Very good. And it's one thing to be able to go to these companies and the experience that you have yourself and the company has with everything they've endured over the years. But the supply chain lanes and the risk to these supply chain lanes, the global supply chain lanes, changes so fast today. A couple of years ago, you wouldn't have had such a massive migrant issue in the United States and in Europe, for example. Because you're in Europe and you have to deal with this daily, and you're closer to it, obviously, than the folks in the United States who are watching this. Can you give us an example of how this is impacting businesses in Europe?
Absolutely. For us, we've had to look with our 3PLs and 4PLs alternative lanes in terms of, and let's use the example of Calais right now, which a lot of the product going into the UK from Europe and from Europe into the rest of Europe, goes through Calais. So we've had to look at alternative routes, which, isn't the most cost-effective and beneficial. Sure. But again, it ensures kind of the safe passage, uninterrupted quality in terms of deliverance to our customer. And we've had to review our whole area just in terms of where we would have the 3PLs, stop for rest breaks. So we've determined and worked with them, which is practical because, driving a truck is a human being, and we want to ensure that, first of all, the human being is safe. Sure. And then that particular driver, has all the necessary breaks possible. So again, we've worked with them to provide an exclusion zone. I think a lot of companies in Europe have done that. We've found alternative ways to get our product from, say, France, because we have a manufacturing site there. That would be the biggest impact. And again, impact on the road and get it to various different locations in Paris. So if we had to fly the product from France back to the UK and vice versa because of the various different challenging situations at Calais, most recently, the influx of a couple of 100,000 immigrants, then we've done that, George. So we all identify that there's a problem. And we all collectively work on that problem because Cummins prides itself on being a family internally, but a family externally. And again, for us, the benefit is let's work with our partner rather than dictating to the way that we want it to do, because two heads are better than one.
Absolutely. And another major issue that has recently hit Europe was Brexit. As soon as you find out, okay, England is going to be leaving the European Union, are there meetings in a war room somewhere saying, what are we going to do now? Or is this something that you say, well, we have time for this, we'll figure it out? Or is this an immediate impact?
It's not an immediate impact as such, but it is an immediate impact for our senior leadership to address. So really, we're looking, we're investigating, we're trying to understand exactly what does Brexit mean for us as an organisation, because we have over 5,000 employees in the UK. A lot of our manufacturing sites, George, are in the UK as well. Mm-hmm. So we're really trying to figure out, like everybody else, what impact does that have on us? I don't think anybody has the real answer right now. Others may, but we certainly don't. But we are certainly taking it quite serious from our chairman and CEO down. So we have a working group now that's looking at all the various different analogies that may happen. So yeah, it's on our radar very much so. Again, a lot of our business in Europe is depending on Brexit, and because we have our manufacturing sites in the UK, it's quite important to us.
Absolutely. When you look at supply chains in transit in the United States, it's fairly easy to get pretty good data on the security of supply chains in transit, cargo theft, risks, things like that. But in countries like China, it seems like a lot of companies don't get really good data on the security of the supply chains. How do you rely on, or what information do you get that helps you to mitigate risks in countries like China where you're not getting the great data that you can get from other countries?
Yeah, that's a great question, George, because it always has been a challenge in terms of the data. Excuse me. So one of the positive things from my perspective is, just over 2 years ago, we hired a security director into Cummins from in China, based in Shanghai. Did hire him from my previous employer, although they weren't quite happy about it at the time. So he has the level of intelligence and contacts within the country to look at the risks that we as an organization, because most of our manufacturing sites in China are joint ventures. Again, for us to influence them, it's a 50-50 joint venture. So for us to do that, we certainly have to be certainly ingrained and embedded within the organization. And assessing the risks that we have is really through auditing. I do agree with you. Data is quite hard to find. Standards are still quite high, believe it or not. But again, having a good resource on the ground, having those contacts, and having access to the likes of TAPA, whether it's Asia, having access to OSAC, which is the Overseas Advisory Council, meeting with the RSOs. Again, that's how we gather our intelligence, if you want to call it that, and gather our I suppose, our data in order to provide the necessary security, technology, input, and bolster basically our security landscape within China as a country.
And Declan, really my last question for you today, sir. When you take over an organizational supply chain as big as Cummins, when you move from one organization to another, and all of a sudden you take over global logistics, which was okay because you already had that role, like you said, it was very similar with Dell, but when you come into those roles, where do you start understanding the risk to your supply chain?
Well, it starts way before understanding the risk, George. So for us is to understand what people have been working towards and against, probably for the last 10 or 15 years as logistics security has developed over time. And for us, really, it was, is to sit down and understand from the business, what it is that they would like to see, and then explain to them exactly what we would like to be able to do. So it's more of a compadre, big family approach, just in terms of how we're going to look at the risk. Then talk to our 3PLs and 4PLs, because we're bringing a new platform. They will already ultimately, as you've outlined, a lot of them will be some of the big key players, some of the big five. They'll already have the structures in place. So for us, it was quite easy for the 3PLs and 4PLs, again, through our MSA or through constant feedback communication, whether it's QBRs or business reviews, is to say, this is our end goal. This is the Gantt chart in terms of where we need to be. These are the deficiencies that we see based on the product that we have, and this is how we'd like to rectify it. And again, it's a two-way street, two-way conversation with a multitude of, I suppose, in-house customers in order for them to see and address what our concerns will be. But again, more importantly, to understand the program and the benefits of that program. And they're now seeing it, George, because we now have a lot of customers coming to us to say, you guys CT-PAT certified, what is your CT-PAT number? Are you Cummins going for AEO certification? So over the last 12 months, in terms of AEO, Cummins has invested heavily in terms of security technology and in terms of some of our own internal warehousing, because we do our own internal warehousing as well. And we see the value that it brings just from, again, let's go back to the quality aspect. Customer quality is everything. We're a technology company that builds engines. So our view is the minute you arrive at our front door, you see technology, you see quality. So for us, it was really a quick win-win in terms of being able to demonstrate that. Certainly, Dell, it has its own challenges in terms of the product and I suppose the applications they have to put to secure the product. Cummins are the same, but at a different level based on the product type. But again, for us, some of the basic fundamentals still have to be in place in terms of ensuring we have the right 3PLs, 4PLs, ensuring, or the quality of the product and the way that it's being handled in each of these facilities is up to the level and the standard that we require. And again, being able to demonstrate that to our customers. So overall, it was, it took a bit of time. It's a partnership. It's been able to deliver a program that adds value to Cummins, but also adds value to the customer and being able to demonstrate that to us. So Cummins are pretty big on change. So changing the program by, going to what I would say a DEFCON 3 or a DEFCON 4 in terms of US speak was pretty easy. Certainly there had been questions. Certainly there would be challenges, but hey, that's life, and that's what we're here to be able to demonstrate and move forward.
Absolutely. And Declan, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for sharing the information with us. Is there anything you'd like to tell everybody kind of in closing?
Absolutely not. I think, if anybody has any questions, George, or any statements to make in terms of our program or any support that they would like to give, obviously free of charge, be more than willing to accept that. So, shared in my bio will be my contact details. And just want to remind everybody, I'm based in Ireland, that's GMT time. So if you're on the west coast of the US, 8 a.m. my time is 12 midnight your time. So sure. 3 a.m. my time is a lot early, late in the evening your time. So certainly, George, thanks for the opportunity and looking forward to talking with folks and taking this discussion forward.
Thank you, Declan. I want everybody to remember also, if you do contact Declan, he is on the road a lot, or in the air a lot, so you would want to give time for him to respond just in case he's in the middle of a long flight. So thank you very much again, Declan. I look forward to speaking with you again soon, and I hope everybody gets great value from this conversation today. Thank you, sir.